Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Sleeper Cell. Today, I'm going to be looking at and examining the colonial charter of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. I picked this one because originally I am from the state of Maine, which, of course, in 1629, which is when the Massachusetts Bay Colony Charter was granted, the state of Maine did not exist. It did not exist until the 19th century. But the state of Maine came out of the Massachusetts Bay Colony and was eventually granted its own sovereignty, if you will, from Massachusetts, as were states like New Hampshire and Vermont. So without further ado, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, 1629. Charles, by the grace of God, King of England, Scotland, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith. Notice again, defender of the faith. To all to whom these presents shall come, greeting. Whereas our most dear and royal father, King James, of blessed memory, by his highness, letters, patents bearing date at Westminster, the 3rd day of November, in the 18th year of his reign, hath given and granted unto the council established at Plymouth in the county of Devon for the planting, ruling, ordering, and governing of New England and America, into their successors and assignees forever, all that part of America lying and being in the breadth from 40 degrees of northerly latitude. And here I'm going to skip this. He goes into basically the physical boundaries of the colony. Okay. And then he talks about, after he enumerates the physical boundaries, provided always that the said islands or any the premises by the said letter patents intended and meant to be granted were not then actually possessed or inhabited by any other Christian prince or state. In other words, he has elevated the concerns of any other Christian prince or state. He's saying specifically Christian. In other words, explicitly Christian, not any other type of religion. He's concerned about not offending other Christians. Why? Because King Charles is concerned with the well-being of Christianity. No, so by any other Christian prince or state, nor within the bounds, limits, or territories of the southern colony, then before granted by our said dear father to be planted in the south part, so on and so forth. He goes into further, and he may be talking at this point the southern colony, in other words, what was to become Connecticut. He doesn't want to infringe upon that. I have to look at the Connecticut colonial charter more closely to see it may have been granted before the Massachusetts Bay Colony of 1629 or at the same time. So they're trying not to confuse the two places and create good order. So again, he goes into that. Then he goes in the second paragraph into the people who he's granting this colony to and what their rights are. The people being Sir Henry Rosewell, Sir John Young, Thomas Southcott, John Humphreys, John Endicott, and Simon Whitcomb, so on and so forth. And you can see some of these. Merrimack River is mentioned, Monomac River is mentioned. Those rivers still bear those names. And again, it goes into the physical bounds of this. It also goes into the commodities that might be in the third paragraph, and in the fourth paragraph talking about who has these rights, and it's a long list of names. You can check this out, and I will again put a link. It's Yale, avalon.law.yale.edu. I'll put a link to it in the description. So when you go to the first, fourth, fifth, sixth paragraph of this charter, provided always that if the said lands, islands, or any other the premises herein before mentioned, and by these presents intended and meant to be granted, or at the time of the granting of the said former letters and patents dated 3rd of November in the 18th year of our said dear father's reign, aforesaid, actually possessed or inhabited by any other Christian prince or state. Again, a regard for other Christians, princes, or states. And part of this is because in this area, the French are also doing settlements. And so the French are considered Christian as well. They are not Anglican. They are Catholic, more so at this point in time. But again, King Charles, in his wisdom, does not want to stir up Christian strife. He is trying to quell that. We saw that some with Maryland. You can see that with the Charter of Maryland and how that works in the history of Maryland. That the Catholics and the Anglicans at this point in time, there's sometimes a lot of strife. But King Charles is wise. He doesn't want to infringe upon any areas that might be claimed by the French. He does not want to create strife in the Christian community. Very wise of him. Or were within the bounds, limits, or territories of that southern colony, then before granted by our said late father to be planted by divers of his loving subjects in the south parts of America, that then this present grant shall not extend to any such parties or parcels thereof so formerly inhabited or lying within the bounds of the southern plantation as aforesaid. But as to those parties or parcels so possessed or inhabited by, again, such Christian prince or state. Again, concern about not stirring strife. Again, he goes into a long list of names of people, what liberties and privileges they have. Some of these are Thomas Southcott, John Humphrey, John Endicott, Simon Whitcomb, Isaac Johnson, Samuel Aldersey, John Yen, so on and so forth. So when we go down to, I believe it is the 11th paragraph of this. Now, clearly in this, right, in the first 10 paragraphs and to the 11th paragraph, there is talk of, plantings, mining, so to speak, treasure, wares, goods, chattels, merchandise, so on and so forth. This is this is also a mercantile venture, as most of these were. But we go to the 11th paragraph, and this is interesting. In further, our will and pleasure is, and we do hereby for us, our heirs and successors, ordain and declare and grant to the said governor and company and their successors, that all and every the subjects of us, our heirs and successors, which shall go to and inhabit within the said lands and premises hereby mentioned to be granted, and every of their children which shall happen to be born there, or on the seas, and going thither, or returning from thence, shall have and enjoy all liberties and immunities of free and natural subjects within any of the dominions of us, our heirs or successors, to all intents, constructions, and purposes whatsoever, as if they and every of them were born within the realm of England, basically putting the realm of English protections, their English subjects, over this colony. And that the governor and deputy governor of the said company for the time being, or either of them, and any two or more of such of the said assistants as shall be thereunto appointed by the said governor and company at the courts, any of their courts or assemblies, to be held as aforesaid, shall and may at all times, and from time to time hereafter, have full power and authority to minister and give the oath, an oath of supremacy and allegiance, or either of them, to all, and so on and so forth. What they're basically saying is all the privileges, the protections, the laws, the orders that are issued by the King of England are, and remember, this charter is granted before the Glorious Revolution. in England, quote unquote, glorious revolution. Um, so basically, they've appointed these governors. They say, you're under English law, and but don't extend English law into territories accompanied by other Christian princes and or states. Now, we go down to the second half of the 11th paragraph. And in this, it talks about the Christian faith specifically. That, and I'm trying to find the actual beginning of the sentence. Okay, but I may have to go to just like the beginning of the clause. These sentences are very long. As also for the disposing and ordering of the election of such of the said officers as shall be annual, and of such others as shall be to succeed in the case of death, or remove all administering the said oaths to the new elected officers, and for the impositions of lawful fines, mulcts, imprisonment, and other lawful correction, according to the course of other corporations, in this our realm of England, and for the directing, ruling, and disposing of all other matters and things, whereby our said people, inhabitants there may be so religiously peaceable and civilly governed as their good life in orderly conversation may win and incite the natives of country to the knowledge and obedience of the only true God and Savior of mankind, and the Christian faith, which in our royal intention and the adventure's free profession is the principal end of this plantation. Notice, bringing people to the Christian faith and to the knowledge of the only true God and Savior of mankind is the principal end, in quotes, this is quoted, principal end of this plantation. The principal end of this plantation was bringing people to the Christian faith. Paragraph 11. The principal end is not riches or treasure or anything like that. The principal end of the plantation is bringing people to the Christian faith, the knowledge of the only true God and Savior of mankind. This is the Massachusetts Bay Colony Charter of 1629, and it states explicitly that the true purpose of it is to bring people to the gospel, to the knowledge of Christ, the Savior of mankind, the only true God, Jesus Christ. To me, that's a great, great statement of purpose. Till next time.